I need you to understand something before I tell you this. I'm not saying what we saw was supposed to exist. I'm not even saying it was real in the way we understand real. But I was there, and I watched it circle us, not once, not twice, over and over again. And the worst part, the part I still can't explain, is that it never attacked. It could have, it should have, but it didn't. And somehow, that made it worse, because when something that big decides not to kill you, it means something else is happening. Something you don't get to understand until it's too late. We didn't know that then. We thought we were lucky. We were wrong. It started like any other routine job. That's the part that always sounds like a lie when I say it out loud, but it's true. Calm sea, flat horizon. The kind of day where the water looks like polished glass, and you start to forget how deep it actually goes. We were running a standard offshore survey, nothing unusual, nothing risky. 6 of us on board, plus the pilot running the submersible. I'd done dives like this before. We all had. You get used to the pressure, the silence, the way the world disappears once you drop below a certain depth. It becomes its own kind of peace. That's what I remember most, thinking back, the peace, how normal everything felt, how undeserved that feeling was. We deployed just after midday. The descent was smooth, controlled, instruments steady, no anomalies. I remember joking about how boring the job had become. That's important, I think, that moment, because boredom lowers your guard. It makes you stop looking for things that don't belong. The deeper we went, the darker it got, until the sunlight above us was just a faint suggestion. Then even that disappeared, just the glow from our own lights cutting through suspended particles, drifting like dust in an abandoned room. It felt isolated, but not threatening. Not yet. The first sign that something was off wasn't visual. It was the sound. A low, irregular vibration that didn't match anything mechanical. Not the engines, not the hull adjusting to pressure. It came and went, subtle enough that at first we thought it was interference. The pilot tapped the console, ran a quick check, said everything looked fine. But the sound came back. Not louder, just closer. That's the only way I can describe it. Like it wasn't increasing in volume, just proximity. We should have turned back then. That's one of the things that keeps replaying in my head. Not because we knew what it was, but because we knew it wasn't normal. And down there, normal is the only thing keeping you safe. We kept going. A few minutes later, the sonar picked something up. Large mass, moving slowly. Too slowly for anything we recognized. The system tried to classify it, and failed. No match, no pattern. Just a shape. Big, unreasonably big. I remember leaning forward, squinting at the screen, trying to make sense of it. Someone behind me laughed nervously, said it was probably a glitch. That word, glitch, felt comforting at the time. It meant the problem was in our equipment, not in the water around us. Then the pilot angled the lights. At first there was nothing, just darkness. Thick, almost textured. Then something shifted in it. Not a clear movement, more like the absence of darkness changing shape. And for a second, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. That happens down there. Your brain fills in gaps, invents edges where there are none. But then it moved again. Slower this time. Deliberate. And that's when we saw part of it. Not the whole thing, just enough. A section of body passing through the edge of the light. Gray, scarred, massive beyond scale. There was no clear beginning or end to it in that moment. Just a surface that kept going, longer than anything that should have been alive. The texture caught the light in a way that made it feel ancient. Not old like a creature. Old like something that had been there before anything else. No one spoke. That's something I remember clearly. 6 people in that sub, and not a single word for several seconds. Because when something that impossible shows up in front of you, your brain doesn't react with panic right away. It stalls. It tries to reject what it's seeing. Then it turned, slowly, not toward us, around us. That's when the realization hit. It wasn't passing by. It was circling. The pilot whispered something under his breath, but I couldn't make it out. My focus was locked on the viewport, on the faint outline moving just beyond the reach of our lights. Every now and then, part of it would slip into visibility, a curve of its body, a suggestion of a fin, the hint of a head too large to fully register. But it never came fully into view. It stayed just far enough away to remain incomplete, and somehow that made it worse. We tracked it on sonar, one full loop around us, then another. It didn't speed up. It didn't slow down. Just a steady, controlled orbit. Someone finally said what we were all thinking. Why isn't it attacking? That question changed everything. Because up until that moment, we were afraid of what it might do. After that, we were afraid of what it was choosing not to do. The pilot suggested ascending, slowly, carefully. No sudden movements. We all agreed without hesitation. No one wanted to test whatever this thing was. The ballast adjusted, and we began to rise. Just a few meters at first. The shape followed. Not aggressively, not even quickly. It simply adjusted its path, maintaining the circle, keeping us in the center. That's when the dread really set in. Because it wasn't reacting to us. It was controlling the situation. I felt it in my chest before I could articulate it. That deep, sinking realization that we weren't observing something anymore. We were part of it. Whatever this was, whatever behavior we were witnessing, we were included in it. Intentionally. We tried to increase the ascent rate. Nothing extreme, just enough to create distance. The circle tightened. Not dramatically. Just enough to be noticeable. Enough to tell us that it was aware of every movement we made. I remember gripping the edge of the console so hard my fingers went numb. My mouth was dry, and I couldn't swallow properly. Every instinct was telling me to get out of there, to move faster, to do something. But there was nowhere to go. No way to outrun something that size in that environment. And still, it didn't attack. It just kept circling. That's when one of the crew, Merrick, said something I wish he hadn't. "It's waiting." No one asked him what he meant. We didn't need to. Because deep down, we all understood the implication. And that's when the sonar briefly lost it. Just for a second. The signal flickered, distorted, then came back. But the shape was closer now. Much closer. Closer than it had any reason to be. Closer than it had been the entire time. And for the first time, the circling stopped. We thought the worst part was seeing it. It wasn't. The worst part was when it stopped moving. 1 second it was circling, slow, controlled, almost patient. The next, it just wasn't. The sonar glitched for a fraction of a second, and when the signal came back, the shape hadn't disappeared. It had repositioned. Closer. Too close. No one spoke. You could feel the shift inside the submersible. Not panic, yet, but something tighter. Like every nerve in your body pulling inward at the same time. The pilot froze over the controls. Not because he didn't know what to do, but because anything we did felt like the wrong move. I leaned forward, trying to see through the viewport, but there was nothing. Just black water and our own light reflecting back in particles. For a moment, it almost felt like it had vanished. Then something passed above us. Not fast, not aggressive, just there. A shadow, massive and slow, cutting off what little ambient glow existed above. It didn't rush. It didn't strike. It drifted, and as it did, the entire sub dimmed for a second, like something had blocked out the world. That's when we realized we had never seen the full size of it. What we'd been watching before, those glimpses, those partial shapes, that wasn't even half of it. Someone behind me whispered, "That's not possible." But it was. It was right there, above us, moving with a kind of control that didn't feel instinctive. It felt deliberate. The pilot finally acted. He increased the ascent. Not slowly this time, not carefully, just enough to break whatever pattern we were stuck in. For a second, nothing happened. Then the sonar pinged again, below us. It had moved under us without us seeing it. That's when the fear changed. Before, we were trapped inside its movement. Now we were blind inside it. It didn't circle anymore. It repositioned. Above, below, somewhere just outside the light. Always close, always aware. And still, it didn't attack. Merrick let out a shaky breath and said it again, quieter this time. "It's still waiting." But now it sounded different. Not like a guess, like a realization. Because whatever this thing was, it wasn't hunting us the way an animal would. It was doing something else, something we didn't understand. And then, without warning, the sub lurched slightly. Just a small shift, like we'd been nudged. Not hit, not rammed, touched. The touch was gentle. That's what stayed with me. Not force, precision. Everything inside the sub went still. No one breathed. No one moved. Another nudge, slightly longer this time, like it was testing us. The pilot whispered, "Don't react." So we didn't. We just sat there, suspended in the dark, waiting for it to decide what we were. Seconds stretched. Then a minute, maybe more. Time didn't feel right anymore. The sonar flickered again. And then it was gone. No movement, no signal, no shadow. Just empty water. We stayed there longer than we should have, afraid that moving would bring it back. Eventually we surfaced. No damage, no marks, nothing to prove what happened. But before we sealed the report, Merrick added one line I still think about. It knew exactly where we were the entire time. And I can't shake the feeling that it let us leave. We told ourselves that was the end of it, that whatever we encountered stayed down there, that the silence after we surfaced meant we were safe again. But things didn't feel right. It started small, equipment logs that didn't match what we remembered. Gaps, just seconds at first, where recorded data was missing. The sonar had black spots, like something had been there but refused to be captured. The pilot tried to explain it away. Pressure interference, system error. The same words we used before we saw it. No one believed it this time. Merrick was the first to say it out loud. What if it didn't lose us? No one answered, because the idea didn't feel impossible anymore. That night, back on deck, I couldn't sleep. The ocean was calm again, just like before the dive. Flat, quiet, too quiet. I kept thinking about the way it moved, not like it was reacting to us, but like it already understood us. Around 3 a.m., I went outside. The air was cold, the kind that cuts through your clothes and wakes you up whether you want it or not. I stood by the railing, staring into the black water. No lights, no movement. Then I saw it. Not clearly, just a disturbance. A shape beneath the surface, far too large to be close to the ship without making waves. But the water stayed still. I leaned forward, trying to focus, telling myself it was just my imagination, leftover fear, nothing more. Then something shifted beneath me. Slow, controlled, following the length of the ship. And in that moment, the worst realization settled in. It hadn't stayed down there. It came up with us. I didn't tell anyone right away. That's the part I regret the most, because once you say something like that out loud, it becomes real. And I think a part of me was still hoping it wasn't. But the next morning, things got worse. One of the crew, Andre, was missing. At first, it didn't trigger panic. People move around on deck, take early shifts, step away without saying anything. But after 20 minutes, then 30, it started to feel wrong. We searched everywhere. Cabins, storage, engine room. Nothing. No signs of struggle. No noise during the night. No reason for him to just disappear. Until someone checked the outer railing. There were marks. Not damage. Not broken metal. Just pressure. Like something heavy had leaned there. And beside it, faint streaks. Water that hadn't fully dried. That's when Merrick looked at me. He didn't ask what I saw the night before. He already knew. No one said the word. No one needed to. But the thought spread through all of us at the same time. It wasn't circling anymore. It had chosen one of us. And the worst part? There hadn't been a sound. After that, no one pretended anymore. We reported it, officially, carefully. Missing crew member, possible accident. That's the language they expect. That's the language that keeps things contained. But no one on that deck believed Andre slipped. Not with those marks. Not with the water still clinging to the rail like something had just been there. Watching. Merrick pulled me aside later. His voice was low, tight. It didn't take him by accident. I didn't argue, because I'd been thinking the same thing. It didn't feel random. Nothing about that thing felt random. That's when the pattern started forming in my head, and I wish it hadn't. I wish I could say I ignored it. But once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. It circled us. It followed us. And now, one of us was gone. Not all of us, just one. Like it didn't need more. That realization sat heavy in my chest the rest of the day. I kept replaying the dive, the way it moved, the way it stayed just out of reach, the way it stopped. And then the thought hit me, sudden and cold. What if the circling wasn't hesitation? What if it was choosing? That night, no one slept. We stayed in groups, lights on, eyes on the water. Every shadow felt wrong. Every sound carried too far. And sometime after midnight, the sonar alarm went off. We hadn't deployed anything. There was nothing in the water. But the system was reading something anyway, directly beneath the ship. And it was moving again. The moment the sonar alarm went off, something inside me dropped. Not fear, not just fear, recognition, because it wasn't random. The screen lit up with a reading that shouldn't have been there. No deployment, no sub, nothing in the water. And yet the signal was clear, massive, moving, directly beneath us. No one spoke at first. We just stared at it, like if we didn't acknowledge it, it might go away. But it didn't. It stayed locked under the ship, slow, controlled, matching us. It followed, someone finally said. No one corrected them. The captain ordered a full system check, maybe hoping, like before, that we could blame the equipment. But the reading stayed consistent, too consistent. Whatever was down there wasn't flickering in and out like a glitch. It was holding position. Merrick leaned closer to the display, his face pale in the dim light. It's not circling anymore. He was right. It wasn't moving around us. It was staying under us, waiting. That word came back again, heavier this time. The captain made the call to move. Not fast, not yet, but enough to test it. The engines shifted, pushing us forward across the flat, black surface. For a few seconds, the sonar lagged behind. Then the shape adjusted, effortlessly, still beneath us. That's when the illusion of control disappeared completely. Out there, on open water, with nothing around for miles, we were used to thinking the ship was the safest place we could be. But something down there had decided otherwise, and it was proving it, slowly. The temperature seemed to drop, or maybe that was just my body reacting. My hands were cold, my chest tight. Every small sound on the ship felt amplified. The hum of the engines, the creak of metal, the soft static from the console. All of it layered over that single truth. We weren't being followed anymore. We were being held. Merrick stepped back, shaking his head slightly. "This doesn't make sense. Why stay under us? Why not just—" He didn't finish. He didn't need to, because we all knew what came next. "If it wanted to hit us," the pilot said quietly, "it already would have." That silence again. The same one from the sub. Only this time it felt worse, because now we understood the pattern. Observe, follow, choose. And now, wait. The captain gave the order to increase speed, not gradual this time, enough to break away if breaking away was even possible. The engines roared louder, pushing us forward. For a moment, just a moment, the sonar signal stretched, lagging behind. Hope. Then it surged forward, closing the gap instantly, still beneath us, perfectly aligned. Something in Merrick snapped then. I heard it in his voice before I saw it in his face. "It's hurting us." That word hit harder than anything else. Not hunting, not chasing, herding, guiding us somewhere. The captain demanded coordinates, demanded direction, demanded anything that could prove that wrong. But the data didn't lie. Our course hadn't changed, but somehow it felt like we weren't the ones choosing it anymore. And then the radar picked something up ahead. At first it looked like interference, a faint shape, barely registering against the horizon. But as we moved closer, it became clearer. Not land, not a vessel, something else. Something low in the water, wide, still, waiting. And beneath us, the thing moved for the first time with purpose, not to attack, but to push. The decision we made next is the reason I'm telling you this at all, because it was the moment we stopped reacting and started making it worse. The captain wanted to turn away from whatever was ahead. That was the first instinct. Break the line. Change course. Get out. But the moment we adjusted even slightly, the sonar reading shifted violently. Not drifting, reacting. The thing surged upward just enough to rattle the hull. Not a strike, not full force, but a warning. A correction. It didn't want us turning. It wanted us moving forward. That's when panic finally broke through whatever discipline we had left. Voices overlapping, orders clashing, everyone talking at once but no one really listening. "We need to outrun it." "You can't outrun that." "Then we stop." "Stopping is worse." Merrick grabbed my arm, hard enough to hurt. "You saw it before anyone else did," he said. "Tell me what it's doing." I didn't want to answer, but I already knew. "It's controlling distance," I said. "Not just from us, from something else." He followed my gaze to the dark shape ahead, barely visible now through the haze, and I saw it click in his head. "It's not bringing us to it," he whispered. "It's keeping us from leaving it." That realization hit differently, because it meant whatever was ahead was worse. The captain made the call anyway. Full power, straight through. Whatever that thing was in front of us, it was still something we might understand. The engines pushed harder. The ship surged forward. For a few seconds, the sonar went unstable. The signal stretched again. And then, impact. Not from below, from the side. The entire ship lurched violently, throwing us off balance. Equipment crashed to the floor. Lights flickered. It had moved faster than we thought possible. Not beneath us anymore. Beside us. Correcting us again. Keeping us in line. And in that chaos, in that single moment where everything shook and no one had control, someone screamed. Not in fear, in pain. I turned just in time to see Merrick collapse, his body slamming against the console as something unseen dragged him backward. Not overboard, not into the water, back, toward the rear of the deck, toward the edge we couldn't see from inside. His fingers clawed at the floor, catching for a second, just long enough for me to grab his arm. For one moment, we were connected, his eyes locked onto mine. And I'll never forget what was in them. Not confusion, not even fear. Recognition. Like he finally understood something I didn't. And then, his grip slipped, and he was gone. The moment Merrick was gone, everything collapsed. Not the ship, not yet, but us. There's a kind of silence that only happens after something irreversible. Not shock, not confusion. Just this hollow absence where your brain refuses to process what it just saw. That's where we were, frozen between action and denial. Then the alarms started again, louder this time, overlapping. Sonar, proximity, structural warnings, all triggering at once like the system itself didn't know what to prioritize. I forced myself to look at the display. The signal wasn't beside us anymore. It was everywhere. Not physically, no. But the readings were breaking apart, splitting, reappearing around us in impossible ways, above, below, alongside. Like it wasn't moving through space anymore, but through us. The captain was shouting orders, but they didn't matter. Nothing we did was changing anything. The engines were still pushing forward, but it didn't feel like we were moving. The shape ahead of us, that low, dark mass on the horizon, was getting closer, but too slowly. Like distance itself was stretching. And beneath all of it, that presence. Closer than before, closer than it had ever been. Then the lights cut out, not completely. Just enough to break the room into fragments. Emergency strips flickering, shadows stretching across the walls. And in those shadows, something felt wrong, like they weren't matching what little light we had left. Someone started praying, quiet at first, then louder. I didn't join them. I couldn't, because I was staring at the rear camera feed. It had come back online for a second. Just a second, long enough to show the water behind us. Flat, black, empty, except for a shape just beneath the surface, keeping pace. And then, slowly, it rose. Not fully, not enough to see everything, just enough to break the surface tension without disturbing the water. That's when I understood. It had never been testing the ship. It had been testing us. And whatever decision it reached, this was the result. The hull screamed, a deep metallic strain that vibrated through my bones. Not an impact, not a strike. Pressure. From below, from everywhere. The ship didn't break. It yielded. Just enough. Just enough for the water to start coming in. I don't remember how long it took after that. Time stopped making sense. There were procedures, I think. Emergency responses. Attempts to seal compartments, to stabilize, to do anything that resembled control. But it all blurred together under one overwhelming truth. We were going down. Not sinking fast, not violently. Slowly, like we were being taken. The dark shape ahead of us, whatever it was, never got clearer. If anything, it became harder to look at. My eyes kept sliding off it, like it didn't want to be fully seen. And beneath us, It stayed, always there, always guiding. By the time the lower deck flooded, there were only a few of us left in the control room. No one spoke anymore. There was nothing left to say, just the sound of water, rising inch by inch, and the constant low groan of the hull giving in. I remember sitting there, soaked, numb, watching the instruments die one by one, and thinking about Merrick, about Andre, about how it chose, not randomly, never randomly. That was the last thing that made sense to me, because as the water reached my chest, as the lights finally failed completely, I felt something shift beneath us one last time. Not violent, not urgent, final. Like whatever this was, it had finished what it came for. The ship tilted slightly, drawn forward into that waiting dark. And just before everything went under, just before the last bit of air disappeared, I realized something I wish I hadn't. It hadn't taken all of us. It never intended to. Only enough. I don't know how I survived. That's not me being dramatic. I mean that literally. There's no version of what happened that ends with me walking away from it. And yet, I did. They found me hours later, drifting, alone. No ship, no debris field that made sense. Just scattered fragments and open water, like whatever took us didn't leave behind evidence, only leftovers. I told them everything, at first, every detail, the circling, the waiting, the way it moved beneath us like it understood more than we did. I even told them about the shape ahead of us, the thing it was keeping us from leaving, or maybe forcing us toward. That part, they didn't like. They stopped writing after that. The questions changed, became smaller, safer, focused on procedures, timelines, anything that could be explained without saying what actually happened. In the end, the report said, structural failure. It always does. The rest of the crew? Listed as lost at sea. No mention of patterns, no mention of choice. Just gone. I tried to let it go after that. I really did. Told myself trauma can twist memory, fill in gaps with things that aren't real. That's what they suggested. That's what they wanted me to believe. But then the dreams started. Not nightmares, not exactly. They're too consistent for that. It's always the same feeling first, that stillness, that quiet, endless water. Then the awareness, not of being chased, but of being known. Like something beneath me already understands where I am, where I'll move, what I'll do. Like it doesn't need to see me, because it already has. And right before I wake up, I feel it again. That slow, controlled movement, circling, not hunting, waiting. I made the mistake of going back to the ocean once, just once. I thought maybe facing it would put something to rest, give me closure. It didn't. I stood on the deck, staring down into the water, telling myself it was just water, just depth, just empty space. Then I saw it, not clearly, just enough. A shape beneath the surface, far too large to be close to shore, still, silent, familiar. And in that moment, every part of me understood something I'd been trying not to admit since the beginning. It never lost track of me. Not during the dive, not after the wreck, not even now. Because the circling was never about the ship or the crew. It was about learning. And now, it doesn't need to circle anymore.